Hi everyone. We are going to learn modern art in this video. So modernity in Europe and North America reflected the emergence of a new kind of society in the wake of the French, American, and industrial revolutions. Driven by technological progress, and characterized by rapid change, the 19th century gave birth to our industrialized middle-class culture of mass production, mass advertising, and mass consumption, including the mass consumption of leisure activities such as shopping, going to entertainments, and visiting art museums. So art museums themselves were a development of the 19th century, and they made art available to the public in a way we now take for granted. The first national museum was the Louvre Museum in Paris. So this is the Louvre Museum in Paris. And art was now for everybody, no longer by the church or by the nobility. So many of the scholars agree that modern art started from Louvre Museum in 1793, and it ended after World War II. Here. So the modern art is divided by two, like here. So before the avant-garde and after the avant-garde. Like this, modern one and modern two. So we learned the photography before, you remember, right? And the first photograph in the world, daguerreotype, came out to the world during this modern time. So as photograph had developed, many artists abandoned the traditional art style and they tried new art styles. Because traditional art was not meaningful anymore, thanks to the invention of a camera. And that also happened during this time period. But the beginning of the modern art movements were still realistic, and their arts were based on observation. So because photographs development was just a baby step, and it wasn't threatening for painters. However, after daguerreotype, the photograph's development was accelerated, and by 1888, here, Kodak invented portable camera and everyone could record their mundane life. So artists needed something new rather than the realist art. The art movement is called avant-garde, means newest art. And after avant-garde, the art history began to write totally different story. So before the avant-garde, there were three major art movements: realism, impressionism, and post-impressionism. And after avant-garde, diverse art movements arose, just like you can see. So Fauvism, Expressionism, Cubism, Futurism, Dada, Surrealism, and Idealism. So today we are going to see the art movements before the avant-garde. So let's see the realism first. So a number of artists broke away from the traditions of earlier 18th and 19th century art to create objective representations of the real world. The movement called realism refers specifically to writers and artists in France who were concerned about achieving social change after the Revolution of 1848. And realist artists sought to depict the everyday and the ordinary rather than the historic, heroic, or the exotic. So their works unmasked for art viewers the true lives of the middle and the lower classes. So this is a realism artist, Honor Darmier's lithography printing work of art. We saw this work when we learned contextual analysis before, right? He recorded a historically terrible event in this work. So let me read the treasury story again. So major French cities, including Ryan and Paris, revolted. April 15, 1834, the Parisians stand barricades in the streets. And during the attack of one of the barricades by the army, Transnomian Street, an infantry captain was killed by a shot fired from a house. The next day, the soldiers will attack very hard rioters and will break down the doors of the building at number 12 Rue Transnomian, and supposed to be the one from which the party was shot. All residents of the building, including old men, women, and children, were massacred. A bloody event that will remain in history as the Massacre of Transnomian Street, imagined by the painter and caricaturist Honor Darmier. So this painting, Stone Breakers, was shocking for its depiction of working class people on a large scale canvas, a scale, the largest scale canvas scale, normally reserved for the heroic subject matter of history paintings, right? But Courbet's painting, this painting, highlights the backbreaking, monotonous work of the poor. The breaking of stones was a job taught by older generations to young men, and it was a job a man would have for a lifetime. The painting shows an older worker and his young assistant as powerful and unrelenting qualities that alarmed the upper classes. And a year before, Courbet painted this work in the resolution working conditions and to low pay. Now let's move on to the next modern art movement before the avant-garde, Impressionism. So the artists who came to be called Impressionists worked in individual, sometimes very different styles, but they were united in rejected the formal approach of the art taught in the academy in Paris. Their art attempted not so much to portray exactly and realistically such scenes as a landscape or life in a city as to capture the light and sensations produced by the scene. The Impressionists formed a group to show their work together outside the official salon in 8 exhibitions held between 1874 and 1886. So their subject matter was scenes of everyday life, rural landscapes, and life in the modern and growing cities of France. Impressionists were often intent on capturing the essence of moment in time. So before the Impressionists, artists who followed the traditional method of painting gave their work a smooth surface, right? But Impressionists, on the other hand, chose to reveal their brush stroke, just like this example. The almost sketchy, unfinished appearance of many Impressionist work breaks away from the academic tradition of implying creating an illusion of three-dimensional space on the canvas. Instead, Impressionists flattened the space, welcomed texture created by the paint, and often allowed the canvas to be seen beneath the painting. And many Impressionist paintings do indeed have an apparently unfinished quality because the artists are interested in capturing instantaneous moments rather than creating a highly finished, technologically flawless piece of work. So now we are going to see three Impressionist artists. The first Impressionist artist is Edward Manet. So he was a French modernist painter, and he was one of the first 19th century artists to paint modern life and people figure in the transition from realism to Impressionism. So let's talk about this painting. Can you read this painting? And can you find the artist's intention in this painting? So Manet's paintings are kind of hard to read. So for this painting, why this front woman is naked and posed like that? And where is she looking at? It seems like she's looking at us, right? And why these two men, are dressed up and act like there are only two of them here. And what is the woman on the back side doing? Is she taking a bath there? So it seems like there is no relationship between the figures, right? And Manet's painting is odd. The art historians still debate just what he meant by it. In modeling his figures, he focused on the highest and the lowest values, right? And all but illuminating the middle and transitional tones. So as a result, forms such as the nude woman body appear flattened as though illuminated by a sudden flash of light. So there is a video about this painting in detail in this page. So please watch it for your understanding. And the next painting of by Edward Manet. So the painting is rich in detail, which provide clues to social class. The woman at the bar is a real person known as Suzanne, and who worked at this bar in the early 1880s. And for his painting, Manet posed her in his studio by including a dish of orange in the foreground here. Manet identifies the barmaid as a prostitute, according to art historian Larry L. Lego, who says that Manet habitually associated oranges with prostitution in his painting. Let's move on to the next Impressionist artist, Claude Monet. So Claude Monet stands like no other painter for the Impressionist style, and as the French master of light, he was also a central pioneer of 20th century painting. And when Monet traveled to Paris to visit the Louvre Museum, he witnessed the painters copying from the old masters, like the Renaissance and the Baroque or Rococo paintings. However, Monet brought his paints and other tools with him and sit by a window and paint what he saw there. Monet was in Paris for several years and met several painters who would become friends and fellow impressionists. So one of those friends was Edward Manet. So this painting is Impression Sunrise. So this is a painting by Claude Monet, first shown at what would become known as the Exhibition of the Impressionists in Paris in April 1874. The painting is credited with inspiring the name of the Impressionist movement. And Impressionism, Impression Sunrise, this painting depicts a port in Monet's hometown. And Monet painted the same subject in many times because the lights and sceneries are different by the time, the day, and the weather. And he liked to paint the nature views outside to capture all the difference of lighting while he was painting. And this is another beautiful landscape painting. And he used brush stroke speed to show this time. Through this painting, we even could feel the windy weather. And Monet was diagnosed with nuclear cataracts in both eyes in 1912 at the age of 72. His visual problem began much earlier. Soon after the age of 65, he began to experience changes in his perception of color. In his eye, everything looked blurry and yellowish and brownish to him. And after he was diagnosed cataracts, he spent most of his time at his garden. And he left so many beautiful garden landscape paintings, and he died at 86. So this painting is one of the his garden landscape painting. And there is a video to show his beautiful garden with his paintings he left in this page. So please watch the video to see amazing masterpieces of Impressionism. And now this is the third Impressionist artist, Pierre-Auguste Renoir. So Renoir was a French artist who was a leading painter in the development of the Impressionist style. He depicted beauty and especially feminine sensuality. So this painting is one of the Impressionist most celebrated masterpieces. The painting depicts a typical Sunday afternoon at the original Moulin de l'Aigrette in the district of Montmartre in Paris. In the late 19th century, working class Parisians would dress up and spend time there dancing, drinking, and eating, just like our life. And he left so many beautiful portrait painting like this. So look at the brush stroke on her hair. It's soft, but every single strokes are alive. And this is another portrait. This is unusual portrait style. The composition is not focusing on the figures nor the landscape. And even the kid doesn't show full torso in this painting because he tried unique portrait styles in this painting. And Renoir shows completed technique as impressionist through this painting. And there is a video about his life with masterpieces in this page. So please watch the video to fully understand this amazing artist. And now let's see the third art movement before the avant-garde, post-impressionism. So the next generation of the artist admired many aspects of impressionism we just saw, right? Especially its brightened palette and direct painting technique. But they reacted in various ways to what they perceived as its shortcomings. Their styles are so highly personal that we commonly group them together under the neutral term post-impressionism, meaning simply the artist who came after Impressionism. So we are going to see three post-impressionism artists, Georges Seurat, Vincent van Gogh, and Paul Gauguin. So Georges Seurat wanted to place Impressionism's intuitive recording of optical sensations on a more scientific footing. His reading of color theories led him to develop the technique technique of pointillism, in which discrete dots and dashes of pure complementary colors were supposed to blend in the viewer's eyes. We saw this artist work before. This looks familiar with us, right? So we learned his artistic technique, the pointillism, in visual elements chapter for the optical color mixture. So he painted all the colors with color dots, but he didn't use direct colors. And he used optical color mixture. So for example, to make green color, he used the yellow dots and blue dots. And when the lots of color dots put together, they create new colors. And the next artist of post-impressionism is Vincent van Gogh. So Vincent van Gogh was a Dutch post-impressionist painter who is among the most famous and influential figures in the history of Western art. In just over a decade, he created about 2,100 artworks, including around 860 oil paintings, most of which date from the last 2 years of his life. They include landscapes, still lifes, portraits, and self-portrait, and are characterized by bold colors and dramatic, impulsive, and expressive brushwork that contributed to the foundations of modern art. Sadly, he was not commercially successful, and he suicided at 37, came after years of mental illness and poverty. So this is the, one of the most recognized painting of Vincent van Gogh, The Starry Night. So it describes the view from the east-facing window of asylum room just before sunrise, with the addition of an ideal village. And this is his self-portrait when he had ear. And this is his bedroom painting. And there is a video about this painting in detail in this page. So I want you to watch this video. And this is another his self-portrait painting after he lost his ear. He began to hallucinate and suffer the attacks in which he lost the consciousness. During one of these attacks, he used the knife to cut his ear. He could later recall nothing about the event. And the last post-impressionist artist we are going to see is Paul Gauguin. Paul Gauguin worked in impressionist style early in his career. Gauguin was interested in expressing a spiritual meaning in his art. All these he sought on the sun-drenched island of the South Pacific, where he journeyed to escape what he called the ditches of civilization. And this is one of his famous painting, Titian. The brilliant high-key colors of his Titian paintings reveal his depth to Impressionism. To this lightened palette, he added his own innovations, flattened forms and broad color areas, strong outlines, tertiary color harmonies, a taste for the exotic, an aura of mystery, and quest for the primitive. The woman's pose is derived from Egyptian art. Legs shown in profile, shoulders depicted frontally. And Gauguin believed that European art had been in thrall for too long to the legacy of Greece and Rome, and he looked to the art of Egypt, Islam, and Asia to renew it. So there is a video about his artistic journey based on his journal he left in the in this page. So I need you to watch this video to understand his artist creative viewpoint. So we are going to continue to see the modern art after avant-garde next week. So there are lots of videos related to the modern artist before the avant-garde. So please watch all of the videos because that videos are really important because they are very related to the your final examination. So I highly recommend that you watch all the videos, and we're gonna keep continuing to see the other art movement in the next video. Bye.